Hi everyone, I'm Avren Ghost, a completionist gamer who has been playing computer RPGs since 1990. Today we're talking about Rogue Trader patch 1.6, released alongside the Infinite Museion, the game's third DLC. There's a lot to go through, and I'll save the best part for last. One of the game's secret companions received a substantial mechanical overhaul, and I want to give it the proper treatment it deserves. It's spoiler territory though, so I'll flag it clearly before we get there. Let's dive into it. Starting with what's likely the most DLC-adjacent change in the patch. Both Pasqal and the Forge World Homeworld have been updated to interact properly with the augmentation system introduced in the Infinite Museion. If you're playing a Forge World character, you now get additional augmentation slots right from the start, which feels like a cheeky incentive to pick up the DLC if you haven't. Pasqal, on the other hand, gets something more substantial: unique augmentation slots, starting augmentations, and a set of mechanical updates that tie his character much more tightly to the ferrum sanctum stack system, which is how the game now tracks how augmented the character actually is. His Machine Spirit Communion ability now scales with intelligence and ferrum sanctum stacks. Manipulator Push gets its damage boosted by the same stacks. The Medicae Mechadendrite both reduces the extra shock damage you accumulate from stacking augmentations and gains a stronger healing effect, also stack dependent. Two new talents complete the changes: Reinforced Servo Drive, which lets Pasqal push enemies, and Fusion of Flesh and Metal, which lets him reuse the Mechadendrite's healing when both he and the target have combined 10 or more Ferrum Sanctum stacks. If you invest in the augmentation side of things, which you should at least for AdMech characters, Pasqal should become considerably more interesting than he was. Two archetypes that have historically been underwhelming got some meaningful attention here. The Operative and Assassin core mechanics now function on bonus turns like those granted by officers, which expands their action economy. Specifically, the Assassins aim for the opening, and the Operatives analyze enemy, both now trigger on those additional turns. Several operative talents, including comprehensive analysis and offensive pattern prediction, also scale better across the board, with some of them now properly accounting for core characteristics. I admit I've been sleeping a bit on these archetypes, they might be worth revisiting now. Grenades have been reworked in a way that makes them actually worth considering as a combat option now. They finally count as area of effects attacks, meaning all the relevant talents that interact with AoE should apply to them. They can also crit now. They receive bonuses from intelligence and the demolition skill. They can also be dodged, probably to avoid being overpowered. It needs to be tested, but it's a welcome change. Grenades were pretty much useless before. On the quality of life front, the talent selection UI has been reworked again, this time with multiple selection filters and groupings to make navigating the systems less overwhelming. Special resources tied to specific archetypes, like lethality, tactical advantage, and versatility, are now better visualized during combat, so you can actually track them at a glance. Nothing revolutionary, but a little more polish doesn't hurt. Now, from here, we're in spoiler territory. If you haven't reached the end of Act 4 yet and want to experience the Secret Companions blind, stop here. Still here? Good. Uralon the Cruel has received a substantial redesign. The patch notes describe it as making him feel like a proper heretic Astartes, and having looked through the changes, that's accurate. He's being reframed as a frontline leader, someone who supports his allies, conjures demons, and fights from the front rather than hanging back. All his base stats have been raised by up to 40 points, which alone makes him a much more credible presence on the battlefield. He now has Charge, Kick, and Combat Master, bringing him in line with Ulfar in terms of close-range aggression. Dark Pact now has him sacrifice 20% of his own wounds to grant temporary wounds to an ally, scaled by how much he lost, and is a heretical rank. It's a risky move that fits a character serving the ruinous powers. Infernal Call lets you summon a random demon to fight alongside him until the end of combat. A Pink Horror, a Demonette, a Plague Bearer, or a Bloodleather. If 9 enemies have already been killed, he can use it again. Pleasure in Slaughter adds his Fellowship bonus to his strength, and every time an ally crits or kills, he recovers wounds equal to his Fellowship bonus. When a demon or Uralon himself lands the crit or kills, he recovers twice as much. Blessing of the Dark Gods upgrades all of his Master Tactician abilities. When used on himself or allies, it grants damage bonuses scaling with heretical rank. When used on a demon, they also grant armor penetration scaling with his Fellowship and 3 extra movement points. The Voice of Lorgar gives his allies 1 additional action point for every 2 heretical ranks they have. Chains of Hatred boosts almost all the demons he summons characteristics based on half his fellowship, and those demons generate tactical advantage for Uralon whenever they hit or crit. Profane Zeal stacks a +1 damage bonus every time the creature gets hit, through the whole fight. Master of Union gives him deflection equal to the combined heretical ranks of his entire entourage, which I imagine means the party when you have him with you. And Dark Apostle's Patronage makes him immune to all negative effects of demonic manifestation. To go with all of this, new and updated unique items have been added specifically for him to address the itemization gap that made building around him feel lacking before. I won't list them all, you can see them on the screen. It's a thorough rework. While Uralon's recruitment timing is not great in my opinion, since at that point of the game you already have your favorite and optimized party members, it's now at least mechanically interesting for the final stretch. That covers the highlight of patch 1.6. If you've been on the fence about the Infinite Museion, the Pasqal and Forge world changes are a decent preview of how the augmentation system integrates with existing content. And if you're on a completionist run and want to squeeze more out of the endgame, both Uralon and the operative changes are worth a second look. If you want more completionist coverage of computer RPGs, the channel is here for exactly that. I aim to give you my Dark Heresy beta impressions as soon as I manage to beat the last fight, which is insane at the moment, and to cover the Infinite Museion DLC for Rogue Trader. I started it, but its completion is a little bit down the road. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.